They say there's no return to heaven once they've fallen. But if someone were to find a way, if someone knew a way, who would that be? You see, there's a legend in the Gachiakuta in this arc of the Lady of Penta, a figure that is very mysterious, has smell that is beyond comprehension, and she holds the information given about going to heaven. But how did we get here to this point? What had happened that made Rudo go furious in a fit of rage? But before I get into that, I would appreciate if you guys like and subscribe for more anime, manga, and in general fictional content. And with that, I hope y'all enjoy. And just like that, the thing that they were looking for, Rudo's mask, was finally complete. You see, August just finished Rudo's mask, and if you remember from last chapter, or should I say last arc, we learned that if Rudo doesn't have this mask, he will pass away from the air that is thrown out throughout the world, and how it has killed many characters because of the heavy air and heavy breathing that it will make the character have, especially against trash beast. So with this being said, we do learn that August is a little bit of a creep since he somehow was able to grab Rudo's measurements while he was asleep. Anybody else does this, they're probably getting arrested in real life. But you know, August can do it because whatever. Apparently Rudo let this go unlocking, since all the night escapades, him cleaning his hands from all the burn that he has, and him cleaning the gloves specifically, every night, him having trouble in sleeping, all those nightly escapades is why he's probably not sleeping at night. And of course, Engine asked him, hey, does Sky people not lock their doors? Like, asking a little question about the difference between the two worlds. I do like that Ryo was able to help Rudo and tell people that, hey, he has issues sleeping at night. And of course, while people are confused, how does she know? She's just kind-hearted enough to tell everybody, hey, he has problems. Leave him alone. It shows the type of character she is, as even though she looks very rough on the outside, she's very nice in the inside and cares for others. We do see that August and Aisha are siblings, which is a little cool as, family duo in the cleaners. But it doesn't really matter too much. Either way, the journey for trying to find the lady will begin now. Though before they had to go, they had to grab Rudo's choker, as it seems to be a communication device between the people in the underground world, so they know where they are, which is very confusing how that works in the scientific world, since, there's not really a space they can put that thing in, and with the trash being thrown down, I doubt that they would not be knocked out the air. But hey, somehow they have electrical abilities or electrical wires to be able to send signals to people. But the whole reason they were trying to get his choker is to add more information onto it and make sure that they communicate with one another. But the reason they wanted Rudo's choker was because they needed to give their blood to it, because if they had their blood, they'll be able to communicate. You see, they can't communicate unless they have the person's blood that they're communicating with their choker, which means Rudo gave them theirs, and they gave theirs to Rudo. Though the panel that they asked Rudo for blood in was kind of funny, Rudo seemed in shock, and he's like, what? And, of course, they're like, give us your blood, man. And they give us, a complete, bloodshot look. It's like them going to take it by force. Probably traumatized the kid. Of course, on their journey there, we see as Rudo and everybody else are communicating on the ride there. And we see that the dangers of the Forbidden Zone is still very dangerous. So, of course, Rudo has to have all these backups. Of course, he didn't need them all, but in his head, he was so worried about it that he did take all these backup trash. Not only that, but he was getting mentally prepared for the situation that will arise. And so, once they get near enough, they dropped their car, they put their mask on, and they were all in the Forbidden Zone. Even though it was hot, they needed to walk in there anyways because of the dangers that could arise with trash beast or with the oxygen in general. And from what it seems like, they're in a complete sandstorm, or should I say just sand, a desert entirely, and there seems to be nothing there. We see an explanation of how the mask works. It seems like the pole gets, you have to stick it onto the mask, cook it up, and then oxygen will come into the mask, which it's just for them to breathe in, since they'll be in an area without very good oxygen and in an area that will make them have trouble breathing. And so they were exploring for the woman, but something came up, a giant trash beast that looked like a crab. or should I say scorpion. It's like a mix in between since the claws seem very crab-like, but it has a pincer like a scorpion. It's like a mix in between. Of course, this thing is going to be cauterized pretty simply since it's not the main threat of the arc, but it is there to add suspension to it. Before I say anything further, I was wrong. It is not a trash beast, it is an aberrant beast, which is a little different since they're not completely made out of trash. It's mostly like just monsters that live around and are very dangerous, and as a matter of fact. Now, while it is referred to as a scorpion, I still think it's a in between of both because of the claws, but of course, I'm gonna just stick the word on it. It's more than likely just a scorpion, but like I said earlier, it's probably a mix. And so we see some beautiful choreography by Kairana by just them defeating the scorpion, and while the art is very fun, we see their ability to see Ryo use her ability to cut off the stinger before, of course, Zoido gets in there and does his own attacks. You know, again, pretty good at choreography. As it comes down, he dodges it, hits it with a swift attack, holds it there. And then here comes Engine coming down with his umbrella, stabbing through its brain and killing it then and there. The scorpion was defeated. And of course, now that I see it, yeah, it's probably a scorpion. I was probably just tripping. There we see someone watching from miles away. She seemed to be entertained. She must have seen the fight. Is this the lady we've been looking for? And so we see as the cleaners have finished off the scorpion, and they were describing why it's there, as it seems like trash were dug underneath and the sand piled on top of it to make it look like a desert, even though underneath them it is full of trash. And so we see from a distance, eyes staring at the team, a terrifying look to say the least. Rudo was the first to watch, and then everybody caught up to the situation. They found the woman, and it seems Tamsi and Delmon were right behind Rudo, as they were more precautious over him than seeing the lady. Of course, once Rudo explained the situation, they actually could see the lady. They knew this was it. And there we go, the cleaners are in front of the mysterious lady. She seemed to have barely any clothes on, or the clothes that she had was showing that she is very poor. She laughed, and it was as if she knew something that we didn't. The girl's name was Amo, and she thinks the cleaners came in here to meet her. And of course she was correct, which means, where did she get this information from? The Lady of Penta. Penta is the Forbidden Zone. The lady is Amo. We see as Jabber was there with his boss, but yet his boss seemed to have done something or knew something. It seems to be an item, as he said, the other one, and then it panned onto Amo. Even Tamsi seemed shook, as he was confused that there was a woman there from the get-go. Of course, the cleaners were more than likely just precautious, as they didn't sense her at all, and even though she came to them, now it's more than likely just confusing. Was she the woman they were looking for? If so, why was it so easy to find her? Not only this, where did she come from? So of course they were all nervous and arguing with each other to see what they should be doing. Of course, Amo, knowing the question, she immediately asked, hey, do you know the way in between heaven and the world? And so she seemed a little confused at first, but then she answered with, yes, I have. She seems to have a place not far from here, as she invites them over. But we also see in this same panel that the Forbidden Zone oxygen is very dangerous towards her, as she coughed and was very ill towards the air, which of course we know that this is normal for the people of the underground world. She didn't have a mask on because of course it is a short walk, but they were confused of it. Ryo asked if she can have a one-on-one talk with her, and honestly, I think this could have been a good option since she didn't seem like a threat. But Engine was just precautious and said no, we're all going as a team, especially if she's up to something. And so out of nowhere, we see as everybody was in a place. Rudo was staring around him, and it seemed like a ghostly type of home. And then we see Engine fall with a smirk on her face. Of course, she seemed like a ghost. And now Rudo was worried, and everything seemed to have gone bad. An hour before. She was just yelling, over here, over here, over here, while they were following behind her. And then her home was appeared. She says we're here, and then everybody heads inside. Seems like a giant pillar. And is it a shortcut to heaven or a gateway to hell? It is referred to as a mansion, which confuses me as that's not our modern day mansions. Which means in the underground world, these mansions are built in a different way to show something, or it is maybe just a place that is kind of huge on the inside, but the outside doesn't matter. Rudo thinks that he might be able to reach heaven with the height of the stairs, as he's getting his hopes up. After all, they're questioning her about how to get to heaven. And so she invites all her guests in, and all of them seem to be suspicious. Everything about this place seems suspicious. Amo is even just inviting them to her bedroom because everything else is just dirty. It's just very suspicious, and I can understand why the cleaners are very worried about the situation. This is when Amo tells everybody to take off her mask, and this was the beginning of her plan. She uses the excuse of them being rude if they don't take off the mask, but why is she trying to get them off them so quickly? It seems like a trap. And so they listened. They took off their mask and they just commented on her room. She was happy to see everyone's faces. It seemed to be the most fancy room between everything there. They were confused why there were a lot of stuff there, and she just wanted to just talk to them in this case, as she asked them, hey, what do you want to talk about? Even though they were more worried about everything that was going on around them. As again, it seemed very suspicious that she had a lot of things in there, and that the fancy part of the building was at the very top. And so Rudo immediately asked the question, hey, how do we get in between heaven and the underground world? How are we able to travel through them? But instead of answering their question, she just looked at them and asked them a different one. The question is, let's talk about each person's type. Everybody seemed confused, as we even see Rudo just question, huh? We see something wrong with Amo as she immediately starts saying, I like people with strong smell. Everybody seemed creeped out, everybody seemed confused, and everybody was just not understanding what was going on with her. She kind of made them uncomfortable. It was so confusing that even Engine questioned, like, so you want to know about our types in order for us to pay for our information? And she just seemed payment for information, like confused, this something was going on, something weird was happening, man. They reconfirmed their question like, hey, yeah, we want to know about heaven. Why are you confused? What is going on? And then that's when she snapped. She was mad that they didn't want to talk to Amo for Amo. She seemed to be emotionally damaged and just pissed. Something in her past was to traumatize her in order for people to think like she's being taken advantage of, even though they're just asking her information. She was just yelling, what the hell? Like, bro, she was insane, bro. It was so bad that, bro, Engine and Rudo were just confused, and Engine just closed his mouth. He's like, I think she lost it, bro. Like, it was insane. But it seems she's like mentally distraught as a character because even if they lied, she wanted them to just see her for her. It would make her happy, I kind of get it. She must have been alone for some time and just wanted to talk to people about things outside of life. And she must have only known a type of life, which is why she's acting this way. It was so much that Engine thought that she would want to be lied to. And so he said, hey, I'm interested in you. And she just yelled out, don't lie to me. Like, yeah, she's broken. So broken that she even yelled to him, like, you're not my type anymore. And like others said, like, they were questioning her, like, hey, put some clothes on. Like, what is going on with her outfit? She has all these things, but yet she wears this. There's something going on with her, and why she's only wearing these clothing, as I think she was hurt in the past. She was even mad at him for suggesting to change clothes, which means, like, she's just emotionally distraught and emotionally in distress for something that had happened. She won't even be friends with them for even giving her a recommendation about adding clothes to her. She's a giver for sure, as Engine saw this immediately. And one thing that Rudo does here that makes him, different than everybody else, instead of worrying about the giver abilities, he worried about the markings on her boots. They seem similar to the markings he has on now. In that moment, she seemed to have gotten Delmon. Now back to the present day. Engine fell to the floor, hit his face on the ground, and everybody was staring at Delmon. Delmon seemed to have shot Engine, and they were questioning what he did to Engine. As he held his weapon out, I'm not sure what that is. Is that like a gun? Is it a hoe? I'm not completely sure. We haven't really seen his abilities much, so this is like the first time we've seen it. It looks like a gun, but we can't really confirm how strong it is. Rudo immediately caught on to her abilities as he yelled like, "Hey, did you do something to him? Like, this is not normal." He began to question things like, "You're a giver, aren't you? Your shoes are the same as my gloves." Everything was confusing. And then he questioned who the hell she was. She had a smile and then went back to her original question. What is their type? It was so confusing that everybody just seemed to be confused over the situation. Even Amo is confused herself. Like, what is going on between the characters, as the communication between them was not normal at all. It shows someone that is emotionally damaged and don't understand how normal people talk. Even though she seems to understand that communication is a fundamental for any person, she doesn't really understand it. She's basically wanting to know about the person, but she doesn't really seem to understand it, as what she wants to learn is about who they are, but instead she's asking, what's your type? It's like a question to understand them more, but at the same time, she just doesn't understand that that's not really gonna get her to know these guys more, because it doesn't relate them to her and they're not able to bounce off each other. She doesn't understand this just yet. Even though Engine was down, she still threatened him, as it seemed to not be fun if her questions were denied. Rudo even gave up. He's like, there's no point in having a conversation. She's not going to listen to it. Zanka seemed to understand the situation, or at least to the best of his abilities, and he seemed to understand that he has to talk things out in her way in order for everything to calm down. But I don't think he really understood it, as he just went down and was more worried about Engine and told her, if you're hostile, I'll simply just crush you. Of course, Amo doesn't understand that the reason he's saying this because he hurt her friend. Because she seemed confused and was crying over why he was saying that to her. Like, I didn't do anything to you. Of course you didn't do anything to me, but you did it to my friend, and that hurt me. Made Delmon go ahead and hit Zanka, in which Zanka was able to dodge. He yelled at Delmon like, hey, we're buddies. And then Delmon was just yelling like, you're hurting the girl's feelings, like how dare you, and stuff like that. The comrades are fighting against each other. The cleaners are fighting against one another because of Amo's ability. He's not being manipulated, but those are his true feelings because of something that she did inside his body. It almost seemed as if Delmon has always known Amo and that he's a big fan of Amo, but this is not really the case, as this seems like it was to a point that even Tamsi was like, hey, you're wrong. He will never hit a comrade at all. And even with that, she makes it to that he will do anything for Amo's sake, even if it's betray the friends he's made along the way. Amo just wanted to talk, and in her headspace, that's what it seemed like. She just wanted to talk to people, and now she's being attacked. Even though that's not what happened, she had abused Engine and almost killed him, and now she's taken control of Delmon. That is why this whole thing is terrifying, as he held his gun out and used his Jinki. They just came out for information, but it seemed this would be more of a pain. It seemed like they would have to fight. Rudo was even blaming himself. He's like, it always ends in a fight. This is always my fault. This is where Amo uses her abilities as she goes through his memories, showing how he's filthy, how he's disgusting. And then she just smiled and said, there's one more fan among you. Rudo falls as if like Majin was going over his brain, just like Vegeta did in the Buu saga, and then he sees everyone as the apostles up in heaven, the same ones that arrested him earlier. He looked around, seeing every disciple as they looked terrifying. He looked scared of everything too, and he was mad, and he started yelling to get out of his space. And honestly, I would do that too, since he was abused by them and thrown down here for no reason. He ran away, and just like Delmon is being controlled by Amo, Delmon was aiming his gun at them and is asking him to just dodge it. You see, with Delmon's ability is that when you get hit by his water, you start growing, and then you basically are gonna grow so much that you start swelling, and it gets to a point where you can kind of like pop, which is kind of terrifying to see, but we haven't seen it yet. But the whole point is to just submit people. You see, it's going to absorb so much water that you burst up and basically just die there. Of course, you're not gonna pop indirectly, but you're gonna pop in which your body is just gonna collapse on itself. That's why Enjin's on the ground the way he is. This is not no downs going on Enjin. He was surprise attacked. So let's not act like if he was on guard, he would have, not tanked this or he would have not dodged it. That is out the way. People start arguing that they are ridiculous. But he has multiple modes, as depending on the nozzle it does, it's a silence nozzle, or there's a more high damaging one that is probably no silence one and can basically one-shot anyone. But here's the thing, Enjin never used a silence on any person, which is why TMZ knew that this woman was doing something to them. Ryo went up to Delmon and said that she'll take care of the situation as he's become an enemy at this point, but they'll need to coordinate an attack in order to make him cooperate again. And so Ryo turns around out of nowhere because she hears something with Amo, and then she turns to Zanka, and right when she was going to say something to him and where she says that I can't entrust my back to anyone, she gets shot then and there with the water pressure, knocking her out onto the ground. Amo was more worried about her home than she was about the people she was attacking. After all, Ryo was in the ground just in complete shock. Amo was laughing as she knew that they didn't know who was the enemy, who was the ally. Amo just said that she wanted to talk. If you wanted to talk, this wouldn't happen. This wouldn't happen. She doesn't understand people. That is why she's doing the things she's doing. She had to have been hurt. Rudo seemed confused as he said, this is the first surface. This is surface. What is going on? This is surface. He's losing it. Rudo is losing it as a character. There's something that she's doing to him to make him see the surface in heaven and see everything that had happened to him again, or specifically the people that were there. He seemed confused. He sees as heaven have returned to him, and Zanka looked at him in a confused state and then refers to as something smells, something nostalgic. Amo then starts to explain her abilities. How do people think of memories? How are they made? The things we see, the things they hear, the people they spend time with, various events turn into memories. For Amo, she makes it into scent. That is it. She explained it. Her abilities went to people with smell. They smelt her abilities and now they're going insane. If they don't want to talk about love, they'll talk about something nostalgic. And then we see as Chiwa appears and she's telling Rudo, try feeling like lovers. Rudo seems shocked. He saw Chiwa for the first time. She's holding his plushie and she was smiling everything. And yet Rudo knew. He knew something was wrong. He's like, no, you didn't. You threw that away. You hurt my feelings. Everything that you just did broke me. And now you're acting like it didn't happen? TMZ knew Rudo was next. Just like Delmon, that he will do a betrayal of them all because of the situation he's seeing. Amo isn't showing them anything. She's making them smell. And giving them that smell is making them see all these different things and is able for them to be under her control. They're all happy memories and happy just thoughts about life and just enjoyable moments and that they want to protect. But that is not going to help someone grow as a person. That's why they got to snap out of it. After someone smelled it, they will be protecting Amo. But here's the thing. Amo is not the greatest fighter, as TMZ and Zanka immediately figured out a counter to her ability. That is why they put back their mask on and realized, yeah, they have to do it this way. Because if they can't smell the smell that she's giving off, then they won't be controlled. And remember what I said earlier, that was a trap, them taking off the mask? That's exactly what it was. It was a complete trap that they just figured out. Because she was an idiot that explained her abilities too early. But then they began to question her. What if someone has a grudge towards that person? Will she be in danger? Even with that, they'll make her powerless before that happens. Amo yelled at him and said this is happy times. And then Rudo was just holding his head as he hated seeing these moments, as he knows he's being lied to, but he doesn't want to believe it in his heart. But here's the thing, Rudo still loves Chiwa and it's hard for him. He wants to hate her, but he can't. His heart is still with her. and all he wants to do is let go, but he can't because Amo is bringing him back, remembering all these memories that he's had with her. He's even questioning, like, why are the feelings of I was happy much greater right now? We see how the apostles grab onto Chiwa, or in this case Zanka and Tamsi grab onto Amo, and then she calls out to Rudo to help her and save her from the situation. Now this one we see something crazy. We see as Rudo blitz the two of them. This is surprising as Rudo is someone new here, and he doesn't even have any jinky abilities. He just hit them straight in the chin. Zanka was just pissed that he hit him, and he just yelled at Rudo, and then Rudo looked down at them like, pathetic? You pathetic disciples? We are not the same. I'm him, and you're an L. He says he has power, and he won't lose someone again. He points at them and in power, and he won't lose someone again. He points at them and then threatens them to a fight. It was only Zanka and Tamsi that were able to survive, as they realized every one of their teammates had been screwed over by the smell. And so they have to do something in order to entrap their comrades in order for they can't smell anything and damage other people. Tamsi looks at everyone and says, "You leave me no choice," as everyone had been captured by Amo and they need to be saved. Even Ryo was captured. We see as Delmon was back with his family for a little bit as they were planting flowers, and it seemed like he had a brother, maybe a father, somebody inspirational to him, and that was just it. We see Amo standing there and saying that she has so many fans: Big Guy, Rudo-kun, Girly, and with that all, those are all of Amo's fans. Even with that, she calls the other two killjoys. The issue is that she is the one that's ruining these guys. Tamsi brings out his weapons, which is a jinky full of yarn. He asks them to please endure it, at least for a little bit. His jinky seems to be named Tokushin. Delmon is seeing some ninjas or just some people that destroyed their crop, and he went to attack them. He seems to be protecting someone as well, and then Ryo seems to be protecting someone as well. They all went in. Folo, Delmon, Ryo, Rudo. That's when Tamsi uses his net ability and captures all of them, one by one by one by one, all at the same time. Amo seemed confused. It was a giant net that trapped all of them. Tamsi tells him if you move, it'll make things worse for them. Experiments, and you're hurting them. You're just making them just feel pain and whatever. Amo even said that for Amo's sake, they'll break free even if they bleed out. Except that Tamsi saw this coming, and he just said that this stick was originally a real yarn. He brings them all in tight so they can't move. They were all in a ball, and all of them were defeated at this moment. The fan reeling was complete. With that being said, even Amo was captured. She was upside down, and Tamsi looked at her and just said, "Capture of the insane woman complete." Tamsi threatened them and said to return them back to normal. She said, "Aight." And then Zanka was like, "That was awfully quick, though I don't think that's gonna happen." He felt like he didn't really contribute much, and then Tamsi just said, they saw that there were more than one enemy, and they got flustered and nervous, and so I was able to get them easy. Once they met Gris, they were relieved that he has his mask on, and then questioned how Injin was. Injin had his mask on now, and they say that he's making a decent recovery. They said that they gotta take him to the medical team quickly though. Amo began to cry as it hurt really badly, but here's a key note here. She said it's been a while she's been treated this roughly. You're the worst, you're the worst. So cruel, so cruel, so cruel. So this must mean that somebody in her past had abused her really badly, and this answers us why she's acting the way she is. She yells at everyone to save her. And so, even though Zanka knew they couldn't move, they began to move anyways. And just yell unforgivable, unforgivable, and yell. And it was just an awful feeling as we see each of the cleaners get hurt. Amo threatened them so much that to just brace themselves, because once they get out, they will all die. She begins to cry more and yell, and then Tamsi just said it's enough. And then he began to think of a plan. He releases all of them, but in this release, he made them fall down a pit way farther down in order for them not to intervene with Amo anymore. With this being said, they were all staying somewhere that's not fatally wounded, but it does hurt them a lot, in order to wake them up, as they were protected by gremlins, marking that she gave them the art prior. Zanka was just worried. He's like, all our allies, like, what are we doing? You're hurting them. And even though Amo was like, see, look what happens when you don't speak to Amo normally. Like, she thought she won here. She's a complete maniac. Rudo was getting off a stab off his chest, or his abdomen. Sorry, his abdomen specifically. And just pulled them out, and she just called them the worst. Zanka was just pissed off that he was able to just throw their teammates down there and be like, oh, you know, you're not accountable towards them, you're hurting them. And Tamsi just seemed confused, like, what are you talking about? Have you forgotten that what we just did? They have their charms on, which means they won't get hurt. Anything that happens to them is not fatal, it's just like small, minuscule damage, and it is nullified. They have the charm, so what are we worrying about here, Zanka? Everyone's fine, and so when Amo realized that she had lost, Injin took her boots, and it was over. Semui and Arca were talking about something specifically, and they were looking over Rudo's information. And of course, Semui was just talking about, I hope they get the information that they're looking for, so the trouble of him won't be as bad as prior. And even though that was what she said out loud, she was mostly thinking about what was inside of Rudo. The two were talking it over as she first saw Rudo have something special, and he wanted to figure out what it was. This is the implication that Rudo has something deeper that we don't know just yet. Angie took away her boots, and she just started to be frustrated. Even though she had no socks, she was mad that he stole something from her and just was yelling to give it back, give it back, give it back. You don't touch my boots, you know. Those boots seemed to be very connected to her, as if something special gave her those boots. Engine even smelt them and were like, geez, these are nasty, I'm surprised you've been wearing them. Engine was just making fun of her basically as he held the boots, and she was yelling for him to give it back to her, as they really do matter to her. And we see as Gris in one of the supports were talking about how he recovers so quickly. Engine told her he'll give them back as long as she deactivates her powers and brings everyone back. She explains she can't do it with only one boot, which seems like Engine gave it back to her just for her to do it anyways, as the next thing we see is the cleaners talking to everyone that was affected. First, Delmon questioned Tamsi and Zanka as they seemed to be confused of what was going on around them, but his senses are back to normal. Tamsi explained that she was playing tricks on him, that's all. And even though that hurt him heavily, he just laid his head down and understood it. It hurt him that he had to accept the fact that that really hurt him, as what had happened in his past seemed to have affected him heavily. Even Rio saw the harsh truth, and that whatever she was trying to not have happen did happen in her life, as you can't take away someone's past. They tell everyone to put their mask on, and then this is when Engine gives her boots, as Amo seemed a little bit like childish in the way she grabbed it and just held on to it tight. Zanka began to question, even if she gives us the information we need, we can't just leave her, she's too dangerous. Engine, as a mature person, said that he won't take away her powers because those Jinkies seem very close to her. What he will teach her is that she cannot harm others as she harmed them. He understands that she doesn't understand how people are, which is why she had this whole crazy meltdown. And once he talks to her, maybe she'll be able to relax about it. Amo began to feel regret as she felt really bad, and now her house was destroyed. They all felt guilty over the situation. Zanka questioned the situation. He's like, how can you still... Rudo gets up. Rudo, they question confused. We go back to Semui, as she was telling Arca that she hasn't seen anybody that resembles Rudo's abilities at all, and she sees many different people. It's not just his glove. What's different is we get cut off. They're not telling us the information. We see as Rudo's walking closer to Amo. Amo smiled, and she said that you got hooked to Amo's smell. And then we see a straight right hook to Amo's cheek. Everybody seems surprised. And then he does it again, and again, and again, and again. Something is growing inside of Rudo. something terrifying. So much power that it could destroy the world. Something like a curse. Rudo has something within him. While he was punching down on Amo, they were explaining his abilities, and the inside of what he has is something like a demon, like a curse. Rudo continued, he continued, he continued. It was so messed that they had to call off Rudo and tell him to get a grip. Gris had to stop him as Amo was crying. And Rudo, while in the wrong, I understand why he broke. Rudo doesn't care that she's a woman. She hurt him in where it hurt most. Where he hasn't recovered from, she used that to her own advantage. And that's why Rudo continued to hit her until she was bleeding the way she was. He didn't care that she was a woman. She hurt him heavily. If the woman is an enemy, he will fight back. Rudo was just mad that she hurt him and she hurt his friends. And she's not defenseless. They said that she's the defenseless girl. She's a giver. She deserves what happened to her because of the pain that she gave others. And while Rudo is not in all correct, I understand why he did so. She hurt him heavily. She hurt the people around him heavily. And she just ruined this whole moment between everyone. He says that she understands the situation she's in. And she needed a beating because she never got one when she was younger. Basically, in this sense. Though even with that, I don't think he realized the whole situation because the information that we're looking for, yeah, she's out. That means he's not able to get the information she had. Angie took Rudo out for them to talk about the situation. And, you know, as the oldest one in the group, he needed to talk to Rudo about what he did was wrong. And even though he understood where he came from, he needed to know that whatever happens in your headspace, you cannot just let it out on others just like that. Rudo had lost his sense of self because he was mad at the world that was around him. He basically let out the world's frustration onto Amo more than what she needed it. Yes, did she need to be disciplined? Of course. But did she need to be beat up? No. He let out the darkness within him that he had been trying to stay away from since forever. He felt regret in his heart for what he did. And like I said, this debate has been going on for a while now in Gachiakuta, specifically Gachiakuta Twitter, where they questioned, was he in the right? No. But was Amo in the right? No. Neither of them were in the right in this situation. It's as a human being, when both people are in the wrong, they both have to grow and both have to become better people. While hearing Rudo break down, Engine just said, I like a good woman. A good woman who's smarter, has a sexy body, and is nice and receptive. He was just trying to distract Rudo, basically. It's a bad perspective to have, really, though, because he knows that if he told a woman out loud, they get mad at him, and so he just says it's just a bad part of him to say stuff like that out loud. There's growing up to do from when you're younger to an adult. It's a good learning experience for Rudo, and Angie wanted him to understand that even he has mistakes. Even he lets out too much information to why, for right now, he's single, or for why he just makes a lot of mistakes in life with women in this case. As an example, you have to figure out your shortcomings and you have to grow from there. And so the two of them will go and apologize to Amo directly later. We see as Tomei apologized for the situation, just began to talk about good things that relate between the two of them. She was happy to talk to her, and now they can gossip all they want. That's when Amo just said, you're gonna make a great mom. Amo's mom was a great mom too. She got to see the angel that crosses between heaven and the underground world. The cleaners clocked what she just said and now question what had happened. Before I continue, I would like to say to y'all, if y'all have any deep issues with SA or deep situations that have happened in your heart, I would regret to not click on the rest of this video, as in this part we hear about Amo's backstory that is very heartbreaking and it is very painful as a reader, which is a good thing to understand from an author, that you're making the reader feel this way. But if you ever feel like it's too much, just click off. I know the series is very good and I enjoy it a lot, but some things that you don't want to talk about or you don't want to remember, you don't want to even think about, it's cool, just go. We see as a younger Amo was walking and she sees a black crow or a black bird. She finds it cute, and her mother was just walking with a saddened look on her face. Her mom says that the black birdie can't like her. And then, of course, Amo's like, why? Why can't it? And then she just uttered, like, I hate it because it won't like me. She uttered that to go away and that I hate you. The blur flew off, and then her mother was like, come on, Amo, we gotta keep going. Amo was questioning where they're going, and then her mother said, a place where someone is really gonna like Amo. We see a man, looks like to be in his 40s, look down at Amo with a grotesque look. His mother looked at him and then looked at her and said, isn't it great? You're a lucky girl, Amo. This person will like you a lot and like you forever. It is good for you. You're a lucky girl. Amo, of course, as a child, she's like, you really like Amo? But really, this is where the sadness begins. The man took the girl who's not even related to her, and then he said that he has a perfect home for her. This is the home that is in the Forbidden Zone, the one she's staying at now. No one would bother us. It is a home just for us. Her mouth was covered. She seemed to be tied up, and she didn't understand. She was just a little girl. And of course, as a young girl, you're gonna take things like a castle, or your mother saying things like to heart, like he's a good man and stuff like that. You're gonna take things hyper literally when really it's not. She's just so fascinated with the place as it looks like a castle. She's like, I want to show Mama. And then this is when she realized the sadness of the situation, as the man said, your mama gave up on you and you lost her. She won't see you again. He told Amo that he will nurture her forever. He gave her books, he gave her food, he gave her clothes. But from what his work says, they hate him because he is a creep, even though he says he's not a creep. Obviously, this guy is a freaking creep. Are we being for real now? Do you see what he's doing? This is what I was saying, like, bro, this was rough to read, like my first get-go. I hated seeing this. Amo seemed to have understood the situation as she's like, oh, this again? But this is where something... Ugh. He said that this room was originally used for some kind of ritual and yells at her that we have to do it. The usual ritual. Amo tells him that it hurts her and that her heart starts pounding and it's really painful. And he just said, that's love. He said that you're in love with me. And Amo just took that as hyper seriously as she doesn't understand. She just laughs and said, this is love, and whatever. Amo smells so good, and again, she was abused again. She said that this is the feeling that love feels like and looks like. We see an older version of her, and every time this happens to her, it's painful, but it says that she feels pain over it, but is being manipulated as she's always been hurt from the situation since she was little. This dude is a complete pedophile, and that's the best way I can say. He's a creep, and he shouldn't even be with Amo, and that's the reason Amo has been hurt. Even with that, Amo was laying there, just exhausted, before she sees a man saying, pardon the intrusion. Amo seemed confused who was there. She's never seen someone else in this place. The man, the weirdo, was yelling at them like, what are you doing in here, entering on your own accord? He said, this space belongs to me and Amo alone. How dare you? Da, 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 da. He told them, I'll kill you if you don't leave me with my Jinky. He uses his abilities as it seems to be the same boots Amo has now. Instead, he doesn't understand the ability as he said, I'll kick you all to death. The man was getting pummeled and abused good for what he was doing, or should I say, not entirely what he was doing, but for him being there as the only one at Amo. They give her the boots, and it says that these suit you much better. This will cover the pain in your heart, and so they were about to leave. He said, until the time comes, I'll lend you those. Use them with care. And then when she questioned who they are, he spread his wings and flew away like an angel. She was mesmerized and happy. And then she turned to her husband at this time, or the weirdo, and she said, Mister, did you see that? Did you see those angels? Like, she's just flabbergasted. Keep in mind, she lost her childhood. He then yelled at Amo and said, Amo. Of course, she's like, oh, that's right, you were hurt. And then he pinned her through the wall and said, those are my Jinky. You stole them from me. Amo has never heard this man yell at her this way. He has never hurt her in this way. Well, he has hurt her, but not in this way. He's abused her, but she didn't realize it was abuse. So now when she realizes this man is a piece of garbage who has been hurting her, who doesn't sue Amo, who's been hurting her throughout her life, she realized she's left alone and she has to fight with her own merit. Rudo came up and finally was able to talk to her as the two were about to apologize. But Folo came up and said the girl was talking about the information you needed. He seemed confused, and then we go back to the memory. The man that abused her was questioning how and why. Why did the Jinky react to you? He was confused. It seems like he didn't understand the Jinky. The Jinky was only working because he was using it, not because he was using it the correct way. She said that they didn't belong to him in the first place, and this pissed him off, as she was saying that they belonged to her in this two turmoil. It was if she had finally gained a piece of her. That's why she was yelling at Angie and like, hey, that's mine, don't take it away from me, because that's hers. That's a part of her. She gives the man the look that she always does. She's like, it's okay if Amo has these, right? He seemed mad, and he said that you shouldn't steal from other people. But of course, she knows that this is not his. This is hers. The angel said it was hers. So in her head, she believed it was hers. The man was getting frustrated. Amo is now older, and it's the first time that she's able to talk back to this man. That's why this man is so despicable, because he abuses these younger people and then hurts them. And then the reason he doesn't like older women is because they talk back and they have their own train of thought. That's why he did that to Amo at such a young age. The two were fighting over the boots, and Amo knew these were hers. She's like, can you please, this is my first and last selfish request. Even though this man has done so much to her, she's still asking, please, like, give this to me for one time. Just give me something. The man didn't understand, and he started yelling no. Amo again was pissed. He was pissed. This situation was gonna go bad. They were fighting for it. They both wanted it, and Amo knew these were not his to begin with. And then she started yelling. This is the first time Amo was breaking down and was hurt. And she even yelled out like, you love Amo, don't you? Of course he says he would, but he was abusing the poor girl. He pulled her by her hair, and the two were having a scruffle before she tossed him out the window to his death. A fate that he deserved for what he did to Amo. She laughed and knew this was hers now. All that pain that she had gone through was from this man, and now it was gone. Now she can live the life she needed. She grabbed the gloves, and it was because of love. That's why she held on to it. This man was the first great love that she will never forget. Though I think with future things, I think this man will be forgotten in her memory and realize that she was abused. That's what she was explaining to everyone, and everyone was dead silent. They knew what was going on and the abuse that she went through. For they just to appear, it must have been really bad. Rio didn't understand it though, and then she's like, well, how did they cross the boundary? And then she's like, they just flew. This is confusing as nobody's able to do that yet. They question her, and she's like, oh, they vanished in the horizon. Like, he didn't see it all. And Jean asked when they returned, and she's like, oh, probably a month ago. That's the same time that Rudo joined in as well. This means this has to have been a coordinated attack. Those angels came from the abyss. Rudo swears that he'll get revenge on that man, as he figures that this man has to be related to the situation. He said he'll make him apologize in front of Rekko's grave. Amo then talks to Rudo on a one-on-one session about what those gloves mean to him, and how they make him feel human. Just like Amo's boots make her feel human as well. She misses the feeling of being loved, like an actual person, being adored but not abused. Amo wants everything back, before she was hurt, where she was with her mother. She wants human emotion that is actually there, that she earned. Amo realized that she's very alone and very lonely from everything that had happened to her. She wants to be needed, but is scared of leaving the desert. That's why she was so forceful when asking for their type, because she wanted someone to love. But that's not how you gain a relationship. You have to talk to them. You have to realize that this is your person. You can't just force onto them. That's why she was reacting the way she was, because of the worldview that she was given. Amo realized why Rudo's there, and that she doesn't need sympathy. She doesn't need sorry. She messed up, and everyone can mess up as well. She thought that everyone will just hurt people in order to help themselves. But Rudo, as a person that grew from their talk with Ninji, held his hand out and said, let's extend our hand together and help each other out. This is a fantastic moment as we see Rudo develop in this arc. He doesn't know how, but he feels like that's the right thing to do. We see Amo smile, and I feel like the connection between the two of them grew from here. Amo didn't want to go just yet. She wants to clear her mind and think about everything, but she thanks Rudo and thanks everyone for the situation, as she was able to grow as a person. From everything that had happened to her, she can finally become her own woman and develop as a person. The information they got is that they know of an angel, but they don't know exactly how the angel is able to cross things. And so, the fact that not only does she have a series of the same thing that Rudo has, but she also knows of an angel that can cross between is new information they didn't have beforehand. And so once they meet that angel, they might be able to cross the board. And then we see a mysterious figure looking after Amo, as Amo was just happy to finally have people to call normal, and something bad seemed to have happened inside for her. She must have been taken away. Rudo realized that he was mad that he punched Amo. Of course, it was because of the situation that had arisen, but he also knew that the angels are the ones that killed Recco, and now he's mad. The people that seem to have abused Amo seem to be the Vandals, as they've gotten something from it. Was it her, or was it something else? That is the conclusion of this arc. Rudo wants to talk to her again in the future, as he feels like him and Amo would have a good relationship. But in this arc, we see a lot happen. We see Amo as a character, a broken one, someone who was abused, someone who needed help, just anything. We see how she developed, we see how Rudo developed, and we see how they found new information about the boundary and how they're able to cross it. That is the Lady of Penta Arc completely explained. And while that was a very hard thing to read at the very end, the abuse that she'd gone through, I think it was good to understand why she was the way she is, and how Kaigo Rana is just fantastic at writing these characters the way they are. We will see how much these characters develop, and maybe Rudo and Amo will even meet up again in the future.